Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Modern SaaS Podcast. I have a very special guest today. Everything I learned about sales, I give credit to this person. Kris Rudeegraap is a founder and CEO of Sendoso. It's a leading sending platform. Kris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Really excited to be here today.
And I'll give people a little bit of context how we know each other. It's been what, 10 years now we know each
Yeah,
other?
I know. It's been a while.
It's been a while. And the funny story is the backstory is that my first company startup, it was called Shopalize. It was another social commerce SaaS application back then. That time, Twitter and Facebook was really popular. And I was building the product and I met Kris at a conference and I pitched him the product. And he was also looking for another startup idea. He liked the idea. And then Kris and I joined hands. He was handling all things with sales, marketing. That's how I learned how to do prospecting, how to reach out to cold to customers, how to do demos. I had no freaking idea everything about sales. So Kris, whatever I am about all the things with sales, credit goes to you.
Well, thank you, thank you. It was a really fun experience, and I learned a lot on the product development side and all things customer facing too from you. So it was good synergies.
I know. And we somehow kept meeting each other throughout the journey, even with Avoma's journey. You gave us a lot of feedback early on. And so again, lots of conversations we have over the period, lots of point of views that I've learned. And when I'm thinking about this whole modern SaaS experience, one of the common person that kept coming to my mind was that I got to get Kris on the line to learn everything about prospect because I still remember even with Sendoso, when we were doing Sendoso, you told me that, hey, I'm probably the best prospector here right now. I'm able to identify the prospects and you were generating leads for your team as well. So what I wanted to talk about today was all things with prospecting. But before I dive into the very specific topic, obviously you are a CEO of a Series C company. You have raised $150 million. You're a market leader in this space. You're growing really well. But at the same time, the market in the economic condition that we have, I want to probably start there to how are you handling the situations? What changes are you doing at the company, especially maybe prospecting side, sales side, and then we'll go specific deep into all things with prospecting itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really relevant question. It's on a lot of CEOs and C levels and VPs' minds, or everyone's mind, honestly. What's going on in the economy right now, and how's that affect startups or big companies? I think no one is immune to the situation that we're seeing. So, for us specifically on the kind of sales and prospecting side, as that's kind of the focus of this, is trying to be more efficient and effective. I think yesteryear, when money was infinite, you would throw as many butts and seats as you could, and your formulas were just let's get more people dialing, let's get more sales reps and seats. And I think now it's a bit more of looking at who are the best reps, how can we make them better, how do we invest in enablement so that we can see improved efficiencies. Some of the formulas I think have changed in terms of how we think about scaling headcount. I also think we're seeing a bit more full cycle AEs right now. So previously you could hire a gazillion SDRs and let the AEs just focus on kind of opportunities. I think in these times, everyone needs to be prospecting as you're trying to be as efficient as possible. So we're seeing more full cycle sales reps. By full cycle, I mean AEs that are also doing their own prospecting too.
I love it. So this is then even more relevant, not just for the SDRs, but even for all the account executives to learn
Exactly.
what is the new way of prospecting, especially in this market as well.
Exactly.
To start with the prospecting, getting deep there, can you tell me any recent experience where you really like how somebody reached out to you? And also other side of the coin where you did not like the way that they reach out to you. And this could be completely cold outbound outreach that they have done, not through the warm introductions or anything.
For sure. I'm probably going to get some cold outreach after this because I'm giving away all the secrets. But let's do it. So I think one of the things I see that I do like is it depends on the CEO and the level of the company. But as you get into hundreds and hundreds of employees, the CEO rarely is the buyer and champion anymore. I think when you're a 30-person, 50-person company, the CEO might still own a lot of things. But for me, one of the areas that I like is when someone reaches out to me, but says, hey, I'm referencing another colleague that they're talking to, or they're giving me more of an FYI of, hey, I'm talking to your colleague about this problem we're trying to solve for you. Let me know if you're interested or intrigued to learn more. And I feel like that gives me an informative approach, but doesn't ask me to meet with them. I think what I don't like is when someone's like, hey, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. Can you chat for 15 minutes? I'm like, I'm probably not your buyer. If you would have done some research, you would have realized that there's others on my team that are going to be better for that. So I think if you are going to get the CEO involved, it's best to use like an FYI call to action and not a hard ask for their time. I like the if you're intrigued and you want to know more, happy to give you like a quick overview. And that's more exciting for me than just asking for my time. So I think that's one. I mean, I'm always a big fan of short and sweet emails. That's something that's big. I mean, I love when anyone sends me stuff or mentions they're a Sendoso customer. I think that's low hanging fruit and surprising actually how many times I get prospected into by what I know is a Sendoso customer. And they're just sending me a cold email that's not personalized, that doesn't even mention Sendoso and is not a Sendoso gift. So I think there's some value in making sure that the person you're prospecting into is or is not a customer or prospective customer of yours. It can be important. I love warm intros. I think warm intros are good. I think it's for people that could spend the extra minute to see who I'm connected with and ask that person for an intro. Bodes well for me. And then on the cold call front, on my voicemail, I say, hey, I don't check my voicemail, but this is my cell phone, so text me. And I'd prefer to text back. I rarely get texts. I get voicemail after voicemail after voicemail. So that surprises me too, in that I'm literally telling you to text me and I'll text you back, but I still get like 9 out of 10 voicemails. And it's just, I'm like instantly going to delete it because it's like, I don't want to listen to your long voicemail. So, or I don't even want to read your voicemail. I want to just get a quick text. So
that is surprising.
I also use this tool called gated.com, which eliminates a lot of the robot spam or even people that are responding. So it kind of blocks my inbox. So I get even less cold emails than others.
There are so many interesting things you talked about. So one is obviously the whole, first of all, check if you're a customer or not. If you're reaching out to them, are you using their product? Give them the praise. Everybody likes to get recognized and praised to hear about their own product, how awesome Sendoso was. And in fact, I literally had this experience. So we use one of the subscription platform companies, and we are a customer for the last 2-3 years. And their either AE or SDR is still trying to sell me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, get your systems together.
Yes.
We have been paying you. Probably your enterprise type of customer. We are paying a lot. And you don't even know that we're your customer, and you're still reaching out and prospecting me also. So the systems and people not leveraging, understanding who are you reaching out itself is a problem. You also talked about somebody like title like you with the CEO getting to know more about you rather than trying to pitch you. I think it's an excellent tip, rather than knowing that, hey, now there is somebody else as a buyer that you should be reaching out.
And I think that works for other titles too. Like, let's just say you really want to sell into the CIO organization. You don't always have to go ask the CIO for a meeting. You can give them an FYI and start lower with the director or a VP, but provide some air cover and to the executive, or even start even lower on a director level and tell the VP, hey, VP, I'm having a conversation with your colleague. If you want to know more, I'm sure they'll tell you, but just wanted to say hi. And that, I think, bodes well for just giving more information without feeling like, you're just trying to be overly salesy.
I love it. And sometimes do you end up responding to people when they ask you basic information? Because a lot of the times I feel that rather than immediately trying to say that, hey, let me show you what we have, can I have 15 minutes? Maybe I could even ask you, what are the categories that you're trying to sell? What have you done it? So the basic situational questions, they're low-hanging fruit. Yes, we do this, or we don't do this, or yes, currently we are implementing this, or we haven't implemented this. Even if sometimes we get that. So do you end up responding to those questions? Do you encourage people to start having a conversation rather than trying to immediately pitch me?
Yeah, I mean, especially if they're trying to solve a problem that I either know is a problem that we need solved, or I'm intrigued by it. And if it's an easier question to answer, then I'll answer those questions all the time. If I'm always looking to solve problems, and if you're a salesperson that's consultative and helpful, and asks me a question, I've even, responded and they're like, hey, probably not a good fit for you then. I'm like, cool, glad we chatted. I'll let you know if things change, or, that kind of quick conversation is better than them just, asking for meeting, I think.
Nowadays, when you get this cold email, do you know that am I put into sequence? Or do you generally believe that, no, this might be the real email?
I think sometimes I do. Sometimes people are good enough with using their tools that it's harder to tell. But there's definitely times where I can tell that I'm in one of the sequences cadences.
And do you believe sales engagement platforms, obviously our multi-billion dollar companies are being
Yeah.
built there, so definitely they're very valuable, not to try to pick on them, but I do believe that they've definitely helped reps lot to become a lot more productive for sure. Do you believe that these platforms have made the experience of buyers and prospects a lot worse, where we are getting bombarded with these automated emails? On one hand, maybe we are making salespeople, SDRs, a little bit lazy with these
hmm
automated tools, and then that somehow is giving bad experience to prospect. Do you feel that, or that's not how you have been thinking about this space at all?
So, I mean, coming with the sales background, I love these platforms because, I don't know, 10 years ago, they weren't in existent really. And so it was so
Yeah.
much harder. I think used wrong, they can create really lazy habits and can come across as spam. But ultimately, I see them as more task management and orchestration. And
Mm,
so, and most of the time, they're not 100% automated if done right. And so I think it does allow for a salesperson to think about the entire prospect journey. Hey, there's going to be 18 different steps of the sequence, and there's going to be a personal LinkedIn message, maybe a personal cold call, maybe you're sending a unique gift, maybe there is a few emails that are automated in that. But over the course of whatever, a few months, and with personal touches, it should come across as genuine. And if you're
mm.
honestly trying to help that prospect solve a problem and understand their pain points in a consultative way, I think it should be beneficial to the buyer. Um, and it's a lot better than the buyer just getting sprayed and prayed through maybe
Mm.
more of the automated email only platforms. I like them, and I think they serve a good purpose, helping the good salespeople be that much better.
That's a good one. Like, no matter what, if you're lazy,
Yeah,
what tool that we give you, you're still going to be like that. But if you're
exactly.
somebody who is a great closer, making their life better and productive is a lot more valuable so that they can continue to close more, save their time rather than them wasting the time on some mundane task that they should not be doing. So in a way that the way you're saying that, hey, these tools actually help the top performers to get even probably better top performers. The lazy one will continue to find the older ways or easy hacks to do certain things. And that's how it will never still help them. And that's how they will probably end up giving bad experience to buyers anyways.
Exactly. And I remember way back in the day, there was some like 10 years ago, some hacky ways for you to do email only mail merges through Outlook. And then
Yep.
like Gmail had this like yet another mail merge tool that was like
Yep.
an easy way to just mail merge. And I think that is, a crux and probably a lazy spam habit where it's pure email. But I think with these sequencing tools, they've incorporated all the other touch points and have really done a good job of making a good salesperson better, and making a lot of manual steps and again maybe more of a task management orchestration. Hey, I've got to do 50 different personal manual things today, and it's going to make it easier for me to just go through that list. And that's beneficial to the buyers who want that personal approach.
I love that. I love that. And now, so obviously, sales engagement tools, they are evolving themselves with this omni-channel experience. They are
Yep.
bringing offline engagement like Sendoso, what you guys do, and we'll get into that, but also LinkedIn engagement, social selling. Are there any specific trends that you're seeing in just the prospecting that you're really liking, new ways how videos and everything else? What comes to top of mind that, hey, Aditya, these are the modern trends that every SDR now need to get equipped to and understand? Is it social selling is most important? Is video prospecting? All these are have been there. Some use
Yeah.
it very well, some not. What do you think?
The video selling and the social selling, I think those are table stakes by now. I don't think those are
Mm,
necessarily modern and new trends. I think if you're not doing that, you're behind. So you should have already been
exactly.
doing that. Some of the newer things I'm seeing, leveraging like intent data. Well, it's been around for a handful of years. I think people are finally getting better at it, and there's more providers and the data is better. So knowing, you've got so many different accounts that you could sell to or that are your named account list. How do you prioritize them? And or how are you making sure you're reaching out to the right accounts who are in your market and ready to buy at the right time? So I think intent data, and I think some of these intent data providers who originally maybe started it as a marketing function around how marketers can use intent data is trickling into prospecting tools and sales tools so that SDRs can benefit from it too. So I think intent data is one that comes to mind. I think ABM orchestration. I think ABM is, again, has, in my mind, being so ingrained in like the MarTech sales tech space. I mean, like that's old news. It's been around for the last 5 years. I still think there's a lot of people that haven't perfected it where it's like, as a salesperson and you're reaching out, prospecting into a new account, the power of an ad that's coming into that person that's personalized and relevant, a field event that's targeting them, direct mailers, all of them that have the same synergistic messaging, all hitting that prospect at the same time and partially supported by marketing while you're doing your own outreach, I think is really powerful and is still being perfected and is not like as obvious. I think that's a trend in ABM orchestration. And I think AI, I mean, although it's a very general term, I think is in the very early days, and I'm excited to see what to come of how AI can assist sellers. I think there's going to be some really interesting ways that AI is going to benefit sellers. And so I think that's like the trend that I'm most excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think there are two things I want to deep dive here. So one would be the AI is obviously helping in probably writing content with the solutions like ChatGPT, and you'll get more content that's personalized, conversational as well. But I also worry that people don't over abuse it, and
I agree.
some of the early examples I've seen, the content is very formal. On one hand, we are trying to be more casual in the tone. The ChatGPT is very formal, dear sir, dear Kris,
Yes,
and so I think it's still going back to the older practices. So while people might be thinking that it's saving the time, I just want to make sure that the authenticity comes from the right tone, the way you speak, and if you write it that way, rather than coming from marketing jargons. I think we need to be careful about that.
I totally agree there. And I think that there's other areas I've seen like where you're doing summaries and that saves you time from reading, or where you're, asking a quick question in Slack to get CRM data that's like locked up in a gazillion different fields. And so I think there's different ways that AI can assist in selling. I think I agree with you that like writing emails is still yet to see if it's better, but I obviously think if you give it a handful of years more, it's going to be perfected because it's going to be helpful. But again, it's there's going to be a human in the loop. But if it makes humans more effective and makes them better sellers and shaves off manual work that they were doing before, I see that as a benefit.
I like that. I think the research part is where the AI can definitely help a lot, where I have to go and look into 5 different systems to come up with the cohesive messaging. If AI can help me get the research at my fingertips, and then I take my own writing style and I leverage that information, that's probably how the value would be.
100%.
You also mentioned the whole ABM thing. You mentioned it's still not being perfected. And you also talked about why the ABM orchestration is still a problem to some extent. Mm-hmm. Do you believe is it still the case? It's been around. We have been hearing it a lot. And it seems like because it's a very cross-functional initiative, you have to get involved. The direct mails, you talked about paid advertising. There's also the account list and which account we go after targeted list. Is it because the tools are not sophisticated enough to orchestrate this end-to-end really well still yet? That's why there is still a problem. But it's not a tool issue, but it's more of a understanding about the strategy and how to execute and having a dedicated owner and then being it split into 2 different functions. Could be marketing, could be sales, and there's not having enough alignment. So is it a people issue or is it a tool issue?
I think it's a bit of both. And I think there's just, an adoption curve where there's, multi-billion dollar or multinational corporations that had a way that they did it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, and they're harder to change their habits or they're, take some years to adopt things like new software or new processes. And so I think there's a bit of that there's still people that are wowed by the idea of ABM. I think it's hard to execute. It sounds easy to say, hey, let's do this account list. Let's do all these. Let's get our ads team and our field team and our direct team and our SDR team all on the same page. Like it's easier said than done. And then it goes to the turnover of these companies where you have year and a half or 18-month tenure in marketing and sales. So you've perfected it, and then you've got a new VP in, and they're like, hey, we want to use this other tool, or hey, we like this ABM approach, but we want to do this slightly differently. And so then you're back to, you're taking two steps back. So I do think some people are doing it really, really well, but I just think it's not like it's table stakes and 100% of companies have nailed it. I think it's still something that is important, especially in the enterprise, that can take longer to adopt processes and tools.
And what would be your high level ideas then? How do you fix it? Like, is it having a single ownership so that there is a clear accountability and goals that this individual would have? Or you are saying that, hey, just the people, because obviously people switching is a concern and the shorter tenure and everybody wants to bring their own tools. That's also a concern we have seen consistently. What would you recommend for anybody who's thinking about, hey, launching a new ABM program, maybe early stage startups, or even you mentioned later stage companies? How can they fix it? Are there any thoughts that you might want to share?
In terms of fixing it, I think there's for companies that are maybe naive to the concept to jump in and learn more and dive into it. For prioritizing, I think, a lot of companies are like, what are the big areas that we want to focus on this year? It's like, okay, ABM should be one of them. I think, it's a catch-22 for startups because it seems like, okay, we're brand new. We can set our own new processes and do ABM. But then there's like, well, it's hard to execute on ABM because you need to do so many different things in tandem to be great at it. So maybe just picking a couple of them. Let's make sure that we're doing ABM ads while we're doing our named account, or let's work with sales to make sure we're marketing to the same accounts that our sales reps are going after and actually have this named account approach and doing campaigns against those accounts. So I think there's some low hanging fruit there. And I think as MarTech and sales tech continue to consolidate and it's easier than connecting 4 different tools to do ABM that, a few tools can do it really well or integrated really well. So it's easier to execute on. So I think it's just a time thing. Time will tell.
But I think I like the way you explain that. Don't boil the ocean in ABM also. ABM
Yeah.
also has so many different things that you can do. So based on
Yeah.
the phase and the stage of the company, take 1 or 2 initiatives, perfect that model, and keep building on top of it. Just because somebody comes in who had done this ABM at a later stage company at a massive scale, don't start there. Look at your own journey. Start with 1 or 2 initiatives rather than boiling the ocean here. And so part of the ABM strategy obviously always has been this whole gifting strategy. One of the things I would like to understand that when you think about gifting, obviously, Sendoso, you are experts, you champion this category, and you probably made it a lot simpler for people to leverage this in many different ways. Prospecting obviously is one of the most common ways that this gets used. I mean, is that the primary way that you think to stand out from the noise? Is that why you recommend that people should be thinking about direct mail or gifting as a strategy? Or what else, the benefits, how you think about why gifting is important when you're thinking about prospecting or ABM strategy?
Yeah. So, I think there's a handful of different touch points that you can engage with and communicate to a prospect during kind of your outreach. And so ultimately, you just need to figure out what works. And for some prospects, giving them 4 phone calls might work. Or for some, it's a phone call and an email and a gift and a LinkedIn message. And so I think it's, as a salesperson, you need to use the tools that are in your tool belt. And if you have a tool like Sendoso, it's just another way for you to build that personal connection, to break through that noise, to send something to somebody that, makes them want to respond. And so I don't think it's this, silver bullet that you can just close your eyes and send a gazillion gifts. But if you're thinking about the buyer's journey and you're, methodical about the different areas that you can reach out to somebody, it's just one more way that you can hope to get in contact with somebody or hope to break through that noise.
Recently, I had received this prospecting, cold prospecting, and somebody said, hey, we'll give you AirPod Pro. Would love to have a demo with us. And on one hand, I felt, wow, AirPod Pro, it sounds exciting. Maybe I should take it. But then I was like, okay, but do I really need this product right now? Should I go and spend that money or their money and then kind of not be helpful to them? So question is that our buyers are getting offended because like, hey, my time is worth more than AirPod. And some might think like that. So when you think about this from a buyer's perspective, what's the better way to think about where you're not giving them bad experience when you're still doing gifting, but you're
Yeah.
being very thoughtful about them?
So I think that, again, going back to that, some buyers actually might love that. You would,
Mm.
someone might be like, oh crap, I don't have AirPods. I would love these no matter what. Like, I'll take a meeting in 10 seconds. So I think you've got to be, it's again, not one size fits all. I think there's also ways to incorporate, messaging with like a handwritten note along with that offer, or an email with that offer that, resonates. Like, maybe the AirPods are about, you want to listen to how if you incorporate puns, or if you're trying to sell some software and you can incorporate something around the AirPods, whether it's listening or what, some way to make the message of your
Mm.
product offering assimilate to the gift that you're saying, it comes across as clever and unique and
Mm.
creative. And so I think if you can get creative with it, I think the, hey, if you have the boilerplate, hey, if you give me 15 minutes, I'll give you AirPods, is not a smart approach. But if you can tailor that message, it can come across as like a genuinely authentic kind of creative, maybe you throw some fun into it, maybe it's funny. And so I think those are the different ways. Like, it's easier to be funny and creative with gifts and the handwritten note associated with it than just an email that might not even get read at all.
I love this. And I remember early on in Sendoso days, you used to give all these ideas to your customers. You even had a team who would basically
Yep.
consult how to think about gifts. You personally were very creative. You used to come up with all these crazy things.
Yeah.
How do you, but do you believe that now whose responsibility is this to come up with these creative? Is every individual SDR, AE should think and develop their muscle memory to think about, hey, I need to think more creatively here. How do they develop that if they're not a creative type of person? Should they increase some level of awareness and observations? Or a company like you guys, do you help them to think about what are the best gifts based on their customer and profile? So what's your advice and guidance to be that creative person and come up with these unique ideas for to stand out?
Yep. So I think a couple things. One is I think there could be a mix of marketing running more one to many programs
Mm,
that they've meticulously thought about what's the creative content, the messaging, the
mm,
gift, and sales is now helping opt in people to get those. And so the
mm,
salesperson has to be maybe less creative in that case and just has to be smart around who they opt into that. So that's one way. Two is
mm.
where marketing enables, or the sales leaders enable salespeople, the SDRs, the A's, to come up with their own creative ways to send whatever they want. And that is where yes, you do need to be better at creativity. And that's also where in historic years where maybe you'd have to remember to, mail merge, you don't have to spend those hours anymore. When you had to go like copy and paste email addresses, like great, there's
Mm.
data tools that do all that for you. So as a seller in today's world, a lot of the hours spent on, manual things, or maybe where AI is helping you, you can then spend your time on being creative. Like, hey, maybe I'm going to spend 15 minutes thinking about what's the right thing to send to this person that's going to be funny and quirky and get their attention. And you have the time now to be able to do that because, software has made you more efficient in all the other selling tools that you're using to make all the rest of your day more operationalized. I think
I love this.
to your
Go
point
ahead,
too,
go ahead, Chris.
Sendoso does offer support there, so it's a part of our offering. And then for larger organizations, and for us, we partner with marketing and different agencies that, for some of the bigger enterprises that have budget, can bring on an
Mm.
agency, and the agency can help brainstorm and come up with concepts too. So there's kind of a, again, how different options for different types of companies.
I love this. I remember introing my first SDR for Avoma, and I like this candidate, and he was already an SDR at another company, and he said, "I'm still thinking if I want to, I'm interviewing you, but I'm not sure if I want to join this." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, the SDR job is not creative. It's like you just wake up and do the same things, send same emails." And I was a little surprised. I was like, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Yeah, we have the script, and that's what we have to send, and we have to do cold calls. That's also a script. Email also a cadence, and we have to just send those emails." So it's so monotonous. And he was a creative type of person, and so he wanted to unlock that, and he wanted to do something different. And I told him that, dude, prospecting is one of the most creative jobs. Like
Yes,
every single
exactly.
time you have to think about it, how do you find this person and what they like and how you can engage with them, what messaging will resonate with them. And he didn't believe that because their entire team of SDRs was told to not change anything in the script.
Wow.
This is the script, just follow it and just do it. So a lot of the times, this is what, when I hear sometimes, my obviously blood boils like, oh my
Yeah.
God, people are still executing like this. They're not giving freedom to SDRs to come up with their own creative ways, and then they eventually get frustrated with those jobs. But yeah, I mean, there is so many opportunities to be creative, even as an SDR. It's not a monotonous job. Yes, you are doing, it's a lot of tasks are repetitive tasks, you might think, but every interaction you can think about and make your kind of interaction really engaging as well. Kris, obviously gifting is you have seen consistently, you guys have seen it's being impactful to your customers, it's growing trend. Does it change anything in this economy? In this economy, is gifting, do you guys see there's an impact? If it is, how do you recommend customers to, or people listening to this, hey, here's a still, you can be still leverage gifting as a strategy, as a standard. If everybody is not going to invest in gifting, you
Yeah.
can still go ahead and invest maybe on some shoestring budget or maybe some more creativity. What would that advice be?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and maybe I'll answer it in two different ways, and I'll take a step back here and kind of say, hey, gifting can be perceived as expensive because it costs money, but I think from the smartest customers we have across sales and marketing and RevOps, they think about it a bit more holistically. So, in comparison to other channels, hey, I spend $1 in ads and I get $2 in pipeline, or I spend $1 in gifting and I get $5 in pipeline. Like, where do I want to spend my dollars? I think that's an interesting way to think about that. You can also say, hey, if we spend $80 on a gift, but it converts to a meeting 4 weeks sooner, what was that employee's time that they spent a month just doing email after email after email, or not closing that deal sooner? What's the revenue impact there? So you could, that could be a different way that you could think about it. There's also, hey, let's just say you have an ACV of 30K or 50K, and you're testing a $20 gift versus an $80 gift. And, like, let's just spend 20, it's cheaper. But what if the $80 gift converts 15 times better? Like that, and that becomes a no brainer. So I think there's a bit of math in it. There's a bit of tracking. I think that's one of the allures to Sendoso is we provide all this data back in a way that you can see these different data points and integrates back into your CRM data, so you can build these holistic models to understand kind of the attribution. And so I think without that attribution, you're kind of closing your eyes and just like guessing. But with that, you can actually decide and have better detailed data to paint that picture. Now, with all that being said, there is things like we sell to SMBs and our deal size is 2K a year. Well, then yes, you have to be a bit more cost conscious. Or, hey, our budgets were $1 million last year. Now we only have 100 grand for budgeting this year. Like, what should we do? So I think, again, that gets to creativity. Like maybe there's a inexpensive dog toy, but the prospect, you heard a dog barking in the background and you send this, $8 dog toy. And it's like, wow, that impact is a lot more than spending, $250 on AirPods, so like the personal approach can offset the dollar amount. Or I've seen some super creative things where there was like this letter in an envelope that probably cost like $2 and it was like missing, reward if found. And it was just like creative messaging. And again, not necessarily purely a gift, but again, more of like a direct mailer that caught their attention. But again, I think there's cost conscious things that you can do that can be effective for low dollar amounts too.
Those examples were really amazing. Do you guys have a list of like these examples, share like best practices or best examples for gifting?
For sure. Like on our resources section on our website, there's a lot of these examples. We have these like inspiration guides with a ton of different examples. And then, like I mentioned before, we have like a send curation team that helps brainstorm with customers to come up with these ideas and share examples in line that are relevant to the specific customer's ICP or industry too. So
I love it because I think we will look that resource and add it into the podcast section so that people can find it as well. Because that's where what I was earlier going, because some of these ideas you and I have never heard, and these are so creative.
Yeah.
That's what puts smiles on your prospect's face. And that's what make that journey also easier for the buyers or sellers here, so that, hey, you know what? We are simplifying your life from Sendoso's point of view to be creative, but then that gives smile to the buyer's experience. And so when you have these automated sequences, something like this puts a smile on their face, they love it and they want to respond to you. There is definitely a little bit of goes along with that extra thought, that extra research that you have done. goes really, really long way. At the end of the day, it's still a human to human. So I would love to share that knowledge with the rest of the audience here as well.
Totally. And you nailed it. I think people buy from people. And if you can make that relationship more humanized, like you're going to win that deal or get in front of that prospect easier.
Do you recommend people to send these things only to book meetings? Or do you also feel that, hey, sometimes test out different stages also? If not
Oh,
for booking a meeting, but maybe to show up or maybe after the demo, what has been effective? Are there any things that you would like to share? Hey, here are the best practices throughout the cycle.
I think for us, I mean, maybe only like maybe 20% or something of our customers are using it for top of funnel prospecting. A lot of our
Got it.
customers are using it throughout the customer journey. So, they're like you mentioned, if you're looking to optimize like demo show rate, maybe you have a low demo show
Mm-hmm.
rate. We've seen customers do a really good job of sending something like the morning of e-gift, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you have a meeting at, noon today. I'm going to send you a DoorDash e-gift in the morning saying, looking forward to chatting. Here's lunch on me today. Like we've seen some really effective strategies to drive meeting show rates, to drive deal acceleration for a lot of mid-market and enterprise sellers that have 3, 4, 5, 6 month sales cycles, a year sales cycles. You've got to really engage and keep that champion entertained and as a champion for many many months. And so you can and or you have to go out and build a buying committee of 5, 10 people, and so we can be effectively helpful in there. And then, signing a new client, telling them thank you, referrals, customer milestones, customer life events. The list goes on and on. Channel partners and different ways that you're using this with channel partners. So I think about it as there's literally infinite different ways that you could leverage this to figure out where in your funnel do you need, to drive more conversion, or what, initiatives do you have? Right now, specifically, I think a lot of customers are focused a bit more on customer retention than ever before because it's, maybe cheaper to retain a customer than it is to go find a new one. And so what tools do you have to go and wow a customer or to get a customer back on the line who's been ghosted for a while? And so we see a lot of companies turning to Sendoso for customer retention initiatives as well.
I love it. I love it. Now, since you have all these different functions are considering it, and today's economic condition, obviously the budget is controlled. Most of the purchase decisions are still controlled by probably CFO or CEO or something like that. How do you think about, like, do you guide people that, hey, when you're thinking about gifting, here's the percent of your budget that you should be allocating to this. This is how you pull, get started in this early days stage. Let's say at Avoma, we are a Series A company. What would you advise me based on, are there some benchmarks that you expect? If your MRR is this percent of marketing budget is there, then similarly put that percent to gifting. How do I think about it? How do I convince my CFO to allocate certain budget? Because obviously, one way I will do some experiments and prove the ROI, and then go back and then try to extend that and get that budget extended as well. But are there any guidelines that you can start advising us that start here at this percentage and then expand if you find more success or not?
Yeah, I mean, so we run the gambit in terms of different customers that sign up with Sendoso. Some are already spending tons of money manually doing this themselves and
Mm,
want a more automated software based approach. Some are never done this before and want to get going and want some advice. And so we have some resources and some calculators available. It's not every customer is going to have the same exact formula. You might, depending on your ACV, depending on how many named accounts, depending on your pipeline goals, there's ways to work backwards on if you want to think about it like that. There's also ways to think about, hey, you've got a marketing budget already assigned. How much of it is going towards campaigns and programs? Okay, how much of it can we slice off here? There's different ways. And I think that's where our sales team can be more consultative and helping individually talk to you about how you should be thinking about it. But there are some resources available that we have on our website too to get some high level overviews.
I love it. No, I think this is where all these ideas are definitely new, catching up. Not everybody has fully adopted it.
Totally.
And you guys are obviously experts in here. So what buyers nowadays want is not more information, but somebody who's guiding them. Here is a way how you should think about it. So the way you said that your sellers, if they do this consultatively, here's how you should think about the ROI, how much budget you should be allocating, and then go and tell that story to your CFO. And then basically that's how they will be able to get the budget and then execute it. Kris, I think we talked a lot of the things in terms of all the things with prospecting and gifting. I loved it. And also what's coming in the modern way of prospecting. As a parting thought, any one last piece of advice that you would want to give to any SDR out there, account executive out there, to navigate in this market? Because most of the objections that you're going to see that we don't have a budget, we're not probably buying. Any one last tip before we part ways?
I just think it goes back to what we were talking about. People buy from people, and get creative and, have fun with it, get quirky. People understand this times, and, do whatever you can do to be more creative. I think that's the name of the game right now.
I love it. Let's end it on that beautiful note. Thank you again for everything, all the wisdom and knowledge you shared. And thanks again for listeners. If you're listening to this podcast, if you like it, definitely do share these practices with your other team members internally. Share with your leaders so that they start understanding what practices that they should be thinking about implementing it as well. Kris, once again, really appreciate coming onto the show.
You bet.
Bye-bye.